The latest revelations surrounding the Young and the Restless place Sally Spectra at the very center of another storm that seems both inevitable and heartbreaking, a painful reminder that in Genoa City, choices carry heavy consequences, and trusting the wrong person can unravel even the most carefully built dreams. Fans have watched Sally fight tirelessly for her place in the world of fashion and business, carving out a reputation as a creative force who could stand on her own merit despite her colorful past and the baggage of her last name. Her journey at Marchetti was proof of that resilience. She was thriving, her designs gaining traction, and her ambition opening doors once thought forever closed to her. But in a decision that will now haunt her, Sally chose to walk away from that rising career, giving up her seat at the table in the cutthroat fashion industry to throw her energy and loyalty behind Billy Abbott, a man whose unpredictable impulses have long been both his greatest strength and most destructive weakness. What makes Sally's plight even more tragic is that she did not make her choice out of necessity or defeat but out of hope, love, and the belief that a partnership with Billy could combine her vision with his daring. Abbott Communications was meant to be their shared project, a venture where she could expand her creative influence while Billy finally proved himself capable of building something solid outside the shadow of his family's empire. Instead, she has found herself tied to a man consumed by old grudges, reckless ambition, and an inability to separate business from personal vendettas. His relentless obsession with Chancellor, his need to outmaneuver and impress his mother Jill, and his ever-present drive to settle scores with Victor Newman have turned what could have been an exciting new chapter into another battlefield littered with disappointment and regret. Sally may have thought she was building a future, but instead, she finds herself watching Billy resurrect the same patterns that have destroyed countless relationships before her. The collapse of Abbott Communications was not a sudden accident but the inevitable result of Billy's tunnel vision. In his quest to prove himself against Victor and to reclaim some lost sense of power, he overreached, demanding loyalty and resources that were never sustainable. He pushed too hard, dragging Jack Abbott into a corner where his brother was forced to withdraw support and funding, leaving Sally stranded in a venture she sacrificed her own career for. The betrayal stings more sharply because Sally knew the risks. The entire town has whispered for years about Billy's self-sabotage, about his tendency to drag down anyone who dares to stand beside him when he is chasing his next conquest or revenge scheme. Sally wanted to believe she would be the exception, that her influence and commitment could help ground him. Now, as the dust settles, she has no one to blame but herself, for she ignored the warnings and trusted a man who has let down every woman he has ever claimed to love. What makes this development particularly devastating for Sally is the timing. Marchetti was not simply a job but a validation of her talent, a fresh start that allowed her to escape the mistakes of her past in Los Angeles and New York. It was a company where her instincts were valued, her designs respected, and her contributions undeniable. Giving it up for Billy was not just a career shift, it was an act of personal sacrifice that carried the promise of greater reward. Instead of finding that reward, she now faces the reality that her professional standing has been compromised, her reputation as a rising star dimmed by association with yet another Abbott disaster. Genoa City is a town that remembers mistakes more vividly than successes, and Sally will have to fight harder than ever to rebuild what she willingly set aside. At the same time, the romantic fallout looms just as large as the professional one. Sally has already endured heartbreaks that left scars. The collapse of her relationship with Adam Newman still lingers, leaving her vulnerable to the fear that she cannot hold on to love without losing herself in the process. With Billy, she seemed to believe she had found someone who understood her, someone equally scarred, equally restless, equally determined to prove the doubters wrong. That connection was intoxicating, but it was also built on shaky ground. Billy has always been a man defined by extremes. When he is committed, he dives headfirst, but when his focus shifts, everything else becomes collateral damage. Sally, who gave up so much, now finds herself once again on the losing end of a gamble, nursing wounds that cut deep into her confidence and her identity. The wider implications of Billy's actions also cannot be ignored. His determination to chase Kane Ashby into an alliance, only to watch it disintegrate just as quickly as it formed, underscores how unstable his vision really is. Kane has long been a complicated figure in Genoa City, a man who oscillates between redemption and deception, but even he seems unwilling to stake his future on Billy's erratic leadership. The fact that Billy's attempts to outmaneuver Victor and impress Jill led him to burn bridges with both Jack and Kane highlights just how much destruction he leaves in his wake when he is consumed by his own agenda. Sally, tethered to him through both business and romance, is inevitably caught in the fallout, watching the walls close in as her choices limit her options. The cruel irony is that Sally, more than anyone, understands what it means to reinvent oneself, to rise from the ashes of failure. Her career in fashion has been punctuated by collapses and rebirths, yet she has always managed to claw her way back with ingenuity and grit. What sets this chapter apart is that her downfall is not entirely her own doing but the consequence of aligning herself with a man whose destructive tendencies she thought she could control. In the end, Billy's self-destruction has become Sally's as well, and her journey back will be far more complicated than before. She will have to confront not just the professional consequences but the personal reckoning of realizing she ignored her own instincts in favor of blind loyalty. For longtime fans of The Young and the Restless, this storyline carries a painful sense of déjà vu. Billy has spent decades oscillating between redemption and ruin, pulling others into his chaos and leaving them to pick up the pieces when his plans collapse. Victoria Newman knows it all too well, as do Chloe, Phyllis, and countless others who once believed they could steady him. Now Sally joins that list, another woman whose future has been compromised by Billy's inability to resist his demons. The tragedy lies in how preventable it all was, how clear the red flags were, how loudly the warnings echoed, and how desperately Sally wanted to believe she was the one who could break the cycle. As the story unfolds, Sally will be forced to answer difficult questions about herself as much as about Billy. Did she give up her career for love, or for the illusion of stability with a man who thrives on instability? Can she reclaim the power she once had at Marchetti, or has she damaged her standing in the industry beyond repair? And most importantly, will she finally learn the painful lesson that saving Billy Abbott is a task no woman can achieve, no matter how much she sacrifices? Her future in Genoa City will depend on her ability to walk away from the wreckage with renewed purpose, but doing so will require strength she may not yet realize she possesses. In the grand tradition of The Young and the Restless, Sally's downfall may ultimately set the stage for her greatest triumph. Soap operas thrive on cycles of loss and redemption, and if Sally can channel her heartbreak into ambition, she may rise again, more determined than ever to prove herself. But until then, she must endure the consequences of her choices, carrying the weight of regret for the career she abandoned, the man she trusted, and the dreams that slipped through her fingers. Genoa City is not a forgiving place, and Sally will have to fight harder than ever to reclaim her place in it. Sally Spectra has spent much of her time in Genoa City trying to prove that she is more than her past, more than the impulsive young woman who once sabotaged rivals and burned bridges in the fashion industry. She has worked to demonstrate that her talents, her creativity, and her vision are strong enough to stand on their own, that she deserves a seat at the table not because of her cunning but because of her ability to deliver results. Yet for all her growth, Sally still finds herself waiting for the one thing that should not be so impossible to obtain, a man who loves her enough to put her first. When she fell for Billy Abbott, she convinced herself that his notorious flaws, his reckless behavior, his need for chaos, his inability to stay committed to one path, would not define their relationship. She believed that she could be the exception, that she could be the one who finally inspired Billy to do things right. But as time passes, it becomes increasingly clear that Sally's weight is only setting her up for disappointment, because Billy has never truly learned how to prioritize anyone but himself and his endless crusades. Sally has long wanted just one moment where Billy would prove that she is his priority. It is not an unreasonable demand, in fact, it is the very foundation of a healthy partnership. Yet time and again, Billy has chosen everything else before her, his rivalry with Victor Newman, his determination to impress Jill, his obsession with Chancellor, his volatile relationship with Jack, and even his own reckless impulses that sabotage his ventures before they ever have a chance to thrive. Sally sacrificed her career at Marchetti, a career she loved and a role where she was finally earning the respect she craved, because she believed in Billy and the dream of Abbott Communications. But instead of being rewarded with loyalty, she has been asked to endure yet another round of broken promises and shifting priorities. For all his assurances that this time he is ready to do things right, there is no evidence in his actions to prove that Sally can trust his words. The tragedy of Sally's situation is heightened by the fact that she is not blind. She knows Billy's history, she knows the patterns, she has heard the stories from Victoria, from Chloe, from Phyllis, from every woman who has come before her and been left with the pieces of Billy's chaos. And yet, she still clings to the hope that she will be different, that their connection will be enough to break the cycle. Billy swears that Sally is his priority now, that Abbott Communications is not just about revenge or ego but about building something for their future. He tells her what she wants to hear, painting a picture of stability and partnership. But words without action are hollow, and Sally cannot live on promises alone. Every time Billy runs back into the fire of his rivalries, every time he pushes her needs to the side for the sake of some larger battle that feeds only his pride, she is reminded that her wait may never end. What makes it all the more painful is that Sally has proven herself capable of building a future on her own. At Marchetti, she was thriving. Her designs were innovative, her business acumen sharp, and she was finally distancing herself from the narrative that painted her as a desperate outsider clawing for scraps. She had respect, she had momentum, and she had a path that was entirely hers. By giving that up for Billy, she gambled her stability for love, for the hope of partnership. Now she finds herself watching as Billy undermines not only her sacrifices but her very sense of self-worth. Instead of lifting her up, he drags her into the whirlwind of his selfish desires, prioritizing grudges and vendettas over the woman who believed in him when few others did. Billy's desire to secure funding for Abbott Communications and rebuild it into something credible is not inherently wrong, ambition is not a flaw. But the way he goes about it, the impatience, the recklessness, the desperation to prove himself to Jill and to bring down Victor, only proves that he is still driven by ego rather than vision. For Billy, business is never just business, it is a battlefield where every victory feels personal and every setback feels like an attack on his identity. That mindset poisons everything he touches, because it leaves no room for collaboration, no room for balance, and no room for the needs of those who stand beside him. Sally, who has given up so much, becomes collateral damage in the endless wars Billy fights. And what makes it worse is that he convinces himself he is doing it for her, that somehow dragging her through this chaos is an act of devotion, when in truth it is the opposite. Fans of The Young and the Restless have long recognized this side of Billy. He is a man who loves passionately but destructively, who burns bridges and relationships with equal intensity. Every woman who has believed he would change has ultimately been proven wrong, because even when Billy tries, his better angels never last long. His need for drama, his compulsion to chase after challenges, and his inability to resist temptation always resurface, undoing any progress he has made. Sally may hope that she will be different, but history suggests otherwise. Even if Billy manages, for a time, to put her first, how long will it last before another feud, another reckless idea, another act of self-sabotage pulls him away again? The heartbreaking reality is that Sally deserves more than this cycle of disappointment. She deserves a partner who sees her not as a means to prove himself but as someone worth protecting, supporting, and celebrating. She deserves to be more than an afterthought when business deals collapse or grudges flare up. Yet her willingness to wait, to hope, to believe against all odds that Billy will finally choose her, traps her in a narrative where she is constantly undervalued. The longer she waits, the more she risks losing not just her career but herself, becoming defined by the very man she wanted to save. Still, there is a sliver of possibility. Genoa City is a town built on reinvention, where the fallen can rise again if they have the will to fight. Sally has risen before, and she can rise again. But the first step will be recognizing that Billy will never give her what she needs, no matter how many promises he makes. Until then, she will remain stuck in a cycle where her sacrifices are wasted, her career diminished, and her heart left bruised by a man who cannot change. For all the pain of that realization, it may also be the catalyst Sally needs to reclaim her independence, to step back into the world of fashion or business and remind everyone, including herself, that she is capable of greatness without anyone standing in front of her. As this storyline unfolds, viewers are left to wonder whether Sally will ever truly walk away or whether her hope in Billy will keep her chained to the chaos. The parallels to her relationship with Adam are undeniable. Another man whose love was intense but ultimately toxic, another relationship where Sally gave too much of herself and received too little in return. If she can break the cycle, if she can find the strength to stop waiting for Billy to prioritize her, she may finally step into the life she deserves. But if she continues to cling to the illusion of change, then heartbreak is not just possible, it is inevitable.